You're listening to the Influential Conversations podcast with the property management coach and industry influence of the year, Kirk, Stafford, and guests. This series is proudly brought to you by Tappy, an Australian-first platform delivering the total property care solution to help property managers provide a world-class maintenance experience to their landlords and tenants and to save them processing time on this maintenance. In Inspection Express, the market leader in property inspection reporting and a digital signature platform to provide all your property documentation in one place, giving you a seamless approach to the way you manage properties. And Agent Dynamics, the Australian market-leading team development ecosystem to help you nurture, grow and retain your property teams since 2014. Now, here's your host, Kirk Stafford. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us in another of the episodes of Influential Conversations. And today it is my very great pleasure to introduce my guest. And this is a guy I've never seen without a smile on his face. Jamie Lampard, Operations Manager for Ballarat Real Estate and their subsidiary offices in Bendigo, Ararat and Maryborough. I think I've got that right. There's the 4 offices, Jamie?
Spot on. Nailed it. Yep. Very good.
Oh, thank you. You've got it, mate. You've got a hell of a CV. I've got to tell you. I mean, you've been with the one company for 16 years. You got your degree in property and real estate, and I think you graduated with distinction in that, didn't you?
I did many years ago. Now it seems a long time ago.
And look, between the 4 offices, you're now responsible for a team of 70 people. About a third of them are property management. You've got 2,500 properties and still growing under management. And you and I obviously share the same affliction or addiction or whatever you want to call it. We're snow skiers.
Absolutely. Yep. I do like getting up to the snow when it does fall from the sky. So it's a good passion to be able to have a break away from the race of real estate and general life.
Oh yeah, for sure. Jamie, thank you so very, very much for your time. Welcome to the show. Tell us more about you. For a start, how did you get into real estate, but particularly how did you end up in property management?
Yeah, great question. Firstly, thanks for having me on today. It's great to be able to share some insights to the wider property management industry. It's a career that I really love and I enjoy quite passionately. So I suppose why and how did I get into real estate? So my mum and dad were very much into buying and selling property. When I was in year 12 at school, I had to go do some work experience, and my parents had used Ron Morrison at Ballarat Real Estate to transact in a number of different properties. And I thought, I'm really not sure what I want to do when I finish my degree. I was thinking maybe real estate, being a property valuer, or going out and being a building inspector. One time I thought I'd be a veterinarian. And I reached out to Ron, who's the company principal here at BRE, and said, hey, my mum and dad have sold a couple of properties with you. Do you mind if I come and do work experience? So I did work experience here in the property management team for about a week. And then shortly after that, Ron rang and said, hey, do you want to come and work on a weekend in reception? We're open 7 days a week. And I was manning the front desk every Sunday, finished school, and then went on and did a degree in property down in Melbourne. And that's how my career in real estate sort of just fell into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think a lot of people, I think a majority of my guests have said that it wasn't really an industry they chose. It was an industry that chose them in what you just said, that you almost fell into it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I started off looking for something just to fill in some time. And I remember I was told about this many, many years ago. I won't say how many, by one of the people I first started studying valuations with at RMIT. I'm giving my age away. Who said to me at the time, said, "Look, real estate's like a drug. Once you get it into your system, once you've been in it for a little while, you might think you can leave, but you actually can't. You'll always be called back to it. It will bring you back in somehow."
Totally.
So, yeah.
And that's what
Sorry, mate.
I was saying, that's exactly what I went on to uni. So went on to uni to become a property valuer. Did my 3-year degree in property valuations. And then I was working at Ballarat Real Estate during that time. And there was times actually during my degree, I thought, you know what, I don't actually want to be a property valuer anymore. I actually love working in agency, and I really loved the team at Ballarat Real Estate and was really intrigued by what the property managers did. I was just the weekend receptionist and taking phone calls from tenants with leaking toilets and after-hours emergencies for the PMs on a weekend. And I really got the thrill and enjoyment out of being thrown a challenge and then having to solve that challenge and then having those connections with people over time. And these things don't happen so much nowadays, but back when I started, 16 years ago, tenants would come in, renters, I should say, if you're listening, Victoria, is they would come in and they would be paying their rent over the counter each week. And I can still remember back then we were, doing the $50 key deposit where people would come in and take the keys out and inspect a rental property. And having those connections with people at a very simple level just sparked my interest for building long-term relationships with people.
Yeah. And my experience when I first cut my teeth, and it was exactly the same. They walk in the door with cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I remember bringing in, and this goes back a while, to bringing the first BPay method into the rent roll I was running. And I had people objecting to it because they were afraid we were going to steal their money from their bank accounts. There was still that fear that we could actually get into the account. It wasn't until you actually show them, no, there's a code on there that is yours only. We don't know what your bank account details are.
Yeah.
So I remember those days. And I also remember that, well, let's not go too far back, but we remember Kalamazoo and ledger cards and those sorts of things. But on a Saturday, it was really interesting. I don't know whether you found this, but on Saturdays, I used to see people standing outside the agency door, outside the window, almost trying to think of what it was they wanted to ask for this time in terms of maintenance.
Yeah.
So it was almost that exchange thing. It was a very transactional business at that stage. And I think we've evolved from there into where we are now. That's much more relationship-based rather than transaction-based.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So 6 years in PM.
Yep.
Just trace out your career from there, because I mean that's there's still a fair bit of time in there. If you look at the amount of time you've been in the business, you must have, and you've stayed with Ballarat Real Estate all that time.
I have
so
indeed.
One company, yeah.
Part of the family or part of the furniture, I often get referred to actually. I finished up at Deakin doing my property degree and started off as an assistant property manager. So I was just working alongside 4 property managers at the time, doing just general administrative tasks. One of the PMs then relocated over to South Australia, and I took on her portfolio. And I remember taking on her portfolio and I thought, my God, I've got the biggest shoes to fill, because she was like a superstar property manager, had been with us for so long. Every landlord loved her. And here's me coming in as a 20-year-old, fresh-faced individual, taking on a portfolio that was looked after by a woman 50 years ages on top of me. And I loved it. Just be careful.
She might be listening to this. So.
She might be. And that's how I sort of I took on her portfolio, which quite quickly became my portfolio. And then I sort of just progressed into other aspects in the business, taking on new business. I really loved the thrill of taking on new clients and really explaining the investment side of things by diversifying portfolios or adding to people's existing portfolio structures.
Yep.
And then having a degree in property, it sort of led me a bit into the commercial property management space. I did that for about 12 or so months, sort of full time, and then went back into the residential team and then managed the property management team itself. And then we grew it into another office in Maryborough, grew to another office over in Ararat. And then a couple of years ago, we then grew into and bought a portfolio over in Bendigo as well. So I suppose my role as back then would have been a property management team leader or head of department, whereas now operations manager. We sort of have our business not broken into two sections, but my core pillar is in property management and driving that particular team.
Yep.
And naturally, I've got a really good bunch of people that work around me that work on the day-to-day aspects of running the department and nurturing new members into the department. Because as I was saying off camera earlier, every one of our property management team members have all joined our team with no experience in real estate whatsoever. So completely green, completely fresh, but we absolutely love it that way.
Yep. Well, you're right. We had a bit of a chat before we came on air, and we were talking about that as one of the aspects. You can then get the opportunity to have them craft their skills within the framework of the company, and they're at your standard and within your expectations, rather than, and we've all seen it when different people have come into different offices. It's always been a case, there's this comparison between the old and the new.
Yeah.
And sometimes letting go of those old habits can be a challenge for some people. That's one of the things that very much come to mind. The attitude to me is the big thing. That mindset of just wanting to get in and learn, I guess, be of service as much as they can to the people that they're dealing with is the key to anyone who wants to be successful in this industry. So tell me, what are the high points for you, or the joy points, I guess, for you in the industry, and where are the bits? Where do you see the challenges?
Yeah, great question. I suppose one of the key aspects in terms of one of the high points would definitely probably been taken on as an associate director in the business, and that happened a couple of years ago. And people often will say to me, "Oh, why do you think that happened?" or "How do you think that happened?" and how can I do that? I've always had the mentality of, when I was an employee of the business, is I've always treated it as though it was my own business. So I had the idea that if I was the business owner, is this the right way of doing things? And just being really supportive of the people around you.
Yep.
Because I feel like it's really, in today's day and age, and no doubt it's been this way for so long, treating people the way you want to be treated is such a simple idea and philosophy, but it's so easy for people to forget. And to be able to come into work and be amongst a team of people that genuinely are, happy, want to be in the environment, and just around passionate, positive, happy people, just creates that environment that you either have to be part of it, because if you're not part of it, you're going to be left behind, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying entirely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but it's also, and you've got to bring that same vibe into work that's around you. You can't be the Eeyore of the business, so to speak, because that tends to reflect onto everybody else around you. So, and this is where I think we all play a part in this word culture. Even though culture really is set by the management around us and above us, everyone's responsible for its maintenance, and everybody's responsible for contributing to it in some way.
Totally.
So what have you seen as the? Sorry, yep.
I was going to say, and by having a team of fresh talent, it creates what I see is really good consistency, because everything is done exactly the same way, because they've all been taught the same way. So their interactions with our clients, with our owners, with our renters, with our tradespeople is generally, 90% of the time done. The conversations are the same, the communication points are all the same, and that consistency builds trust with our clients.
Yep.
And that trust just creates an environment where people just understand how we do things, irrespective of who may be on the phone or writing that email, which then just makes the workload more enjoyable, because you've got that trust with our clients, as opposed to what can happen is, oh, but Susie did it different last month. Why are you doing it this way?
Yep.
Just simple, very simple kind of aspect. But
that's right. But it enables everybody to stay in flow.
Yeah.
Really, it just so that if everyone's singing from the same song sheet, there's no margin for people to sort of try to embellish it a little bit and put their own little touches into it. This is the whole thing. This is where process and procedure, I think, is so very, very important.
Totally.
That you've got to have it this way. I mean, if you look at all the major successful companies in the world, I'm going to use probably I'm going to sort of hark back to Ashley Goodchild and her love for cheeseburgers here. If you get, and Ashley was my first guest, the first ever guest on this series. If you go into a fast food outlet, any one of the major franchises, you'll find that they all make their cheeseburger or whatever it is, they make it exactly the same way.
Yep.
Doesn't matter whether it's in Perth or Ballarat or Brisbane or Baton Rouge, it's all done exactly the same way. And that's the same as what you're saying, that everybody is consistent. They've got the flow of it is, this is our way.
Exactly. Yeah. And having such a big team as well, you just have to have those structures and processes and systems, but also constantly refine those procedures. And we do that on a weekly basis in our property management meetings to look at, right, how do we do this particular process, regroup, retrain on that, irrespective if you've heard the SAM process 10 times over. Is there a way that we can make this better, but make it better for the client experience? Because ultimately, that's what it all is. It's not about, if it's easy for us, that's great. It makes our jobs easier. But ultimately, we want to make sure that the end user, whether that be owner, renter, trades, anyone that we're dealing with, does this lead to an enhanced experience, which is then going to create more brand loyalty for us.
That's right. Is it what the client wants?
Yeah.
Really, that's what it comes down to. And that's the way I think all of us would want to operate. And I think the majority of us try to get to that point. Sometimes we look for the way that's going to be simpler for us, and that may not be what's best for the client. It may not be what the client actually wants to have delivered. It's just that this is what we've got. This is our policy almost. So therefore, it's really sort of fit in or suck it up, which is not the right attitude to have, because we are a relationship business, and we need to be very client centric and client focused in terms of what our outcomes are and what our deliverables are.
Exactly.
So, what have you found the real challenges to be? I mean, I think we all face a similar challenge in that we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
But where have you found the friction points in the in the business and also within PM?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen over my time is expectations and demands. Clients wanting information faster and wanting it done yesterday. And if you ask people, how was your day? A typical response is probably going to be, I've had a busy day. But to me, is it a busy day? Because busy implies there that you are you've had more things on the go today than you would do normally, or is the word busy just what it is every day? So you've just had a normal day's work. So I think that the expectations and the demands of clients is the biggest factor that I've seen. And when there's problems that occur, people taking ownership of those problems and making it their own problem is the biggest thing that I see property managers do. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we had a client who had a hot water service burst. They then had a flood in the property, and then there was an issue with the gas heater. And the property manager thought, "Oh my God, this landlord's going to, kill me because they're spending so much money." But ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't own the house. That client has bought that property as an investment. There is a level of risk in property ownership. Our job is to just simply obtain the information, provide that information to an owner, provide our advice, and the client at the end of the day make that final decision. We shouldn't be, in my view, taking on a problem or taking ownership of a problem, because if you look at every other kind of profession, like, for example, doctors can't take on the fact that all of their clients have got medical issues, because they would just be exhausted at the end of the day, right? More exhausted than they already probably are. But the point I'm trying to make here is that at the end of the day, we're just the conduit between an owner and renter, right? So shit's going to hit the fan, pardon the expression. So when those situations do occur, I just like to be on the front foot, provide that information up front to the owner. And I use an expression from time to time when there's going to be a difficult conversation on the phone. I'll say, hey, Kirk, I've got some information for you. I can either sugarcoat it or I can give it to you raw. Which way do you want it?
I'd take the raw version. Thank you, mate. It's so much easier.
But that's what landlords want. Landlords just want to be told what the information is. And just the simple opening dialogue of that just allows the conversation to not have to try and dance around what could be an uncomfortable or awkward conversation. You've opened it up. You've asked the client, how do you want it? They've said, hit me up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can deliver what is the bad news, but don't feel like it's not your money. It's not. Yeah.
That's right. And it's also not. It's our problem to resolve, but it's not our problem to own. And you're absolutely right, because I think we all get caught up in this. Like, you have a problem, a property where there's 2 or 3 problems concurrently or consecutively, and all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I'm going to be the one shot for delivering the message. We're only the messenger. Totally. We haven't created. We haven't. It wasn't us that sort of flooded the property and burst the hot water service. We didn't stop the air conditioner working. It wasn't our fault that the oven door decided it was going to fall off. All those sorts of things. We're purely there to be the channel of communication.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's where I think that's one of the things that we think we should really take the pressure off ourselves when these things happen, because we've just got to look at it. And this is something that I was sort of had drilled into me a while ago as well. What's the problem? Oh, the problem is I feel like no. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that the heater's not working and the air conditioner's gone as well. So, okay, so there's some repairs that need doing. That's the problem. Let's not personalise it. Let's get away from that. Let's move away from this whole thing of going, it's our doing, because it's not. And the owner's not going to see it as our doing. It's the same. And another good one, particularly at the moment, the way things are going with increases in rents, it's not our doing that rents are increasing. So, it's a market force. So we can't, it's not for us to justify to the tenants, well, look, the tenant's going to get upset, yes, or renter, all we're doing again is we're delivering a piece of news.
Exactly.
We don't necessarily like it, but this is the situation and this is the way it is. We can be empathetic about it, but we don't have to take the problem on. We don't have to own the reactions either.
Exactly. That's the shift in mindset about, growing our team, and anyone who's getting into the industry is ultimately exactly that. What you're saying there is, don't take ownership of the problem. Mm-hmm. We can provide advice to how we can resolve the problem. That's what we're there to do. We're trained to do that. But at the end of the day, it is that owner's responsibility to take that on.
That's right. Yeah. So we don't take ownership of the problem, but we take responsibility for providing solutions or providing options that lead to a solution.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to be. We need to be, and it's an old line. We need to be the problem solver, a professional problem solver.
Exactly.
Because we're here. Yeah, we're here to provide those solutions. And if it turns out that the solutions that we have don't land particularly well because there's costs involved and what have you, once again, it's not our responsibility to take on or to try to justify that, because they're not our costs. It's purely a cost of, as you said before, having an investment property, which is a risk. And I think you and I both own investment properties and have done for some while. We understand that there are risks. There can be repairs, there can be arrears, there can be vacancies. There are other costs that come in and will continue to come in on a regular basis. They're all part of the cost of it. The reward is that we see the property creating a return for us and also increasing in capital value. So that's the balancing to it. But look, we've got a couple of minutes left, but I just want to touch very quickly on solutions internally for you. We've all been through a tough 3 years. I don't think anyone can say, it's been a bed of roses, because it really hasn't. When you get into those flat spots, as we all do, I've got to say, sort of my interactions with you probably show that you're one of the few people that doesn't get many flat spots. Like I said in the intro, I've never seen you without a smile on your face. But we all have them, and sometimes we just don't show them, to the rest of the world. Where do you go to find some inspiration or to find that lift when you get into that flat spot? And don't you dare say Mount Buller. Okay, I'll stop that right now.
If it wasn't Mount Buller, I think many people would probably say drink, but I actually very rarely drink, so I can't even say that. Much to the surprise of many people. My biggest outlet, in terms of, I suppose, going back to what you're saying before about those flat spots and those challenging kind of conversations, there is that I could be having a really tough day, and everyone has those kind of tough days, but I never want to let the people know around me that I'm having a tough day from my team perspective. If I'm having a tough day, I'll go and speak to my general manager, or I'll go speak to our managing director, Ron, and have those conversations with them as my kind of outlet. But I'll never kind of let the team know or that I'm having a rough day, whether that's right or wrong. I just feel as though, as a leader of that particular team, I want to make sure that if they're looking up to me, that I've got that kind of positive, upbeat attitude. And if I've got worries or troubles, then I try and leave that at the door. But even just simple things, during the day, I'll go for a walk every day during the day. So at lunchtime, I'll walk down to the supermarket and buy my lunch. And that will take me, a good part of 20 minutes just to simply get out of the office, just to clear my head. So I come back in refreshed, as opposed to being, a slave to everyone's busy. Everyone's got things on the go, but it's a matter of prioritizing tasks. What might seem as urgent to you isn't, at the end of the day, we're not performing brain surgery, right? So everything can wait. And people might think, it can't wait, it's super urgent, the world's going to fall apart. If the world's going to fall apart, they would be in a hospital ward, or they would be, elsewhere. They wouldn't be at the real estate agent's office, right? So, so in terms of getting back to your original question, I've gone on a bit of a rant there, is simply, I'm big on health and fitness and exercise. So that gives me a huge outlet in that kind of frame. But also, when I'm having those difficult situations, I do like to debrief, and I'll go to select members of our management team to have those conversations with them. Because if I sort of go and do that around the office, that's telling my team that it's okay to let off, and I'll let the team come to me and let off their steam to me, as opposed to doing it in an open forum kind of environment and people slamming files down. We just don't have a culture like that at all, because
but I think that's an attitude, I think, that is hopefully gone from a lot of offices, or it should have gone from every office by now, because that, if you don't have that emotional regulation, it's going to be very difficult for you to communicate properly to the next client you speak to.
Totally.
So you've got to be able to regulate yourself internally. And I think everybody I've spoken to, and this series now has been going for, this is season 2, so we've been going 4 or 5 months now. Everybody I've spoken to has sort of really touched on that as being an important part, that it's important that you have those people around you, those trusted people that you can reflect onto and have conversations with about, how do I lift myself out of this? What's the solution to this? Where you've got those mentorship relationships, but also having a community around you of like-minded people, whether it's family, whether it's professional, whether it's out with a bunch of mates, whatever it is, so that we don't feel like we're isolated in whatever we're facing.
Exactly. And in many cases, once people just get off their chest, it's like a client who's upset and angry. Once they get it off their chest and you get that difficult client, I let them talk on the phone, get off their chest. And once they're off their chest, 9 times out of 10, that's enough.
That's right. Yeah. They just wanted somebody to talk to. Just wanted somebody they wanted to feel heard, wanted to feel as though someone was listening.
Exactly.
And that's been the big thing. I think a lot of our troubleshooting is done just by doing that, just by listening.
Totally.
Yeah. Jamie, it's been a delight. We're actually slightly over time. I as I said to you, I'm going to keep saying to my listeners, I try to keep this 25 minutes. I fail abjectly every time, which is a good problem to have. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to put you on the spot. One saying or a mantra that you carry with you most of the time.
That's a great question. Make the invisible visible. Is quite a simple one. But from an ownership and a renter perspective there, a lot of the concerns and, things from owners and renters when they don't know what's going on or they don't realise how hard your work is because they actually don't know. Mm-hmm. Look at the leasing, the process or the renewal process or doing a rent increase or all these things there. They just think you're just doing a quick email or a quick form on a page and that's it, when they actually don't know how much work goes on behind the scenes. So for me, it's really about trying to make that invisible visible to clients so they can understand and appreciate the value that you've put into it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. And when you can show that value and show the work that's going on behind the scenes, they start to get a different respect for the job and also for the people doing it.
Totally.
Jamie, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with us. I look forward to catching up with you again soon at another conference, and we'll have either a wine if you're in the mood for a wine at that stage or a coffee. Or if all things go to plan, I may well see you on the slopes around either Mount Buller or Mount Hotham sometime over this winter.
I was just about to say, thanks for having me on, Kirk. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, mate. And I think, folks, that's the end of another fabulous, influential conversations, this time with Jamie Lampard from Ballarat Real Estate. You've been listening to another podcast in the Influential Conversations series. This series is proudly brought to you by Tappy, helping property managers deliver a world-class maintenance experience to their landlords and tenants and providing a total property care solution. Inspection Express, the market leader in property inspection reporting and digital signature property documentation, giving you a seamless approach to the way that you manage properties. And Agent Dynamics, the Australian market-leading team development ecosystem to help you nurture, grow and retain your property teams since 2014. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next time for the next in this series.